Thank you very much for the brave people who decided to come to this roundtable with a great title, being active, being productive. We're going to start with Dr. Müller. It's a great pleasure to have you here. I think you can see your title somewhere here. You're president of sport committee of Essenland. I think the main city is Frankfurt. You also have been an ex-deputy, you're a member of parliament of Essenland, and president of sport committee of the Essenland. You have held a lot of political responsibilities, positions, and Essen is a major land in Germany. So can you give us some kind of a view about what you saw or discovered this morning with all the figures and great data, but also about the sporting system in Germany? Because I think it's quite different because we're going to have people from Belgium, from France, from Great Britain. So it's quite interesting because this is the European meetings of company sports, to have a global overview about the situation, in particular about Germany. Thank you, Doctor. Please use the mic.
Guten Morgen.
It's fine. No, you don't. Okay. Just go for it.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor for me. And I think it's a little difference between the sport system of Germany and the sport systems in the other European countries. We have nationwide in Germany more than 90,000 members of non-profitable and non-governmental clubs, sport clubs. And in Hessen, I'm the president of the committee with 2 million members and around about 8,000 clubs. So that is, we are in a great field of sports, and the system is the people come to us in the clubs, and the best is naturally to have sport activities in the companies, to have this privately, and to have this in clubs. And we are trying to build a bridge between the sport activities in our sport clubs and the sport activities in the companies. And I have another connection to this issue. I have 9 grandchildren, and this is a big movement all day long.
As you mentioned, you have held political responsibility within the Essenland. And how was your relationship, your connection with the companies when they try to, let's say, implement some kind of sporting facilities within their offices?
In this 8,000 sport clubs, we have also clubs of companies, and we try to cooperate, and we don't try to invent a wheel a second time. So it's a very close connection between the sport clubs and the company sport clubs.
We've seen this morning that the well-being, well, as far as France is concerned, is a key indicator, key factor for the employees. Do you think in Germany this is the same kind of item we need to emphasize, or maybe the performance, or to represent your company is something which has a stronger appeal for the employees?
No, I think people are people, and so all the benefits we have heard this morning are naturally the same, but the system of sport activities in the companies are not so bright like perhaps in other European countries, because we have the dominance of the sport clubs.
Regarding the, we spoke this morning about Paris 2024, some kind of creating a great momentum for France because we have the Olympic Games in 6 years. You have been many hosting events, and I'm sure you participate to many events. Do you think that hosting a major international events creates the right framework or the right framework for companies, for employees, for any kind of individuals to be more active? Because this is one of the main topics of this roundtable.
But I think we have to make a difference. Our 2 million members are, most of this, are not sportive of competition. They want health, they want joy, they want activities in the family, and it's not only a very, very little crowd which decides to have a competition or a professional way. And I think the demographic change will also change from more to the family and the health sport, and a little bit back from the professional sport.
If tomorrow you're leading some kind of a major corporation in your land, what is one of the first or two measures you're going to implement to ensure that people are going to be more proactive, or your staff, your employees?
I think it's the first thing is to find joy on this sport, to find the engagement of the of the bosses, because it's necessary in whole life to have a model, to have an example. And so I think it's very important to have the bosses, to have their help, and then you can implement in your employees.
Thank you, Dr. Müller. We're going to move west a little bit, go to Belgium. Thank you, Eddie Anis, to be with us. You are the Chief Operating Officer of Randstad, one of the major company related to temporary work and human resources. You are former high jump elite athlete. I think you still hold the high jump record in Belgium. So again, congratulations. But you know, for you, sport is part of your life since you're a kid. You've been practicing. You've been an elite athlete, and now you are leading your Randstad as a company. How do you, regarding what you saw this morning, give us a bit of background regarding Randstad also on different kind of program, because we discussed about the different programs you've been able to implement to ensure that more proactive people are more productive people within your company and your partners.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me here. We can talk later about high jump, but let's start about Randstad. Just to give you an idea, I'm Chief Operations Officer in Belgium, which means I'm responsible for all the staffing business in Belgium. And it's about 1,300 people, of which 700, 800 are consultants, which mean in the branches treating people. Those people put to work roughly 30,000 people every day. So they are high elite athletes. They have to work real hard to get this thing going and to have that performance in the company. So if I look at this morning, I think we were way ahead, because more than 10 years ago, we decided to take care of the well-being of those athletes, being our people. And I especially say well-being because we took it a little bit more holistic than just sports. So we decided to have 4 parameters where we want our people to be okay. The first one is the financial well-being. It may sound funny, but we don't want our people to have financial problems in their private life. So I don't know who has them, but I know they can get some help whenever they need it. We have an emotional wellness, so we take care that their emotional steadiness is okay, so they can have life coaches and they can meditate if they want in the company. We take care of their social wellness, which means they have to tie, they work in teams, they learn from each other, and it's a very open culture up to the very top of the company. And we take also part of their physical wellness. And physical wellness is more than sports, but sports is part of it. So it mainly concerns 4 things. It's get a good sleeping pattern, get some good food in your body, handle stress, of course, or learn to handle stress, and be active. And then again, I say be active because active is more than just sports. So we do big things and little things, and we can talk about that later. But if you talk about an example as a boss, I can just use myself with a small example. We have bilateral meetings, one-on-ones, and half of them I walk with my people. So you don't need big halls, you don't need anything. You just go out and walk, and you do your meeting while you're walking. The only thing you have to take care of is to take notes afterwards, so you don't forget what you agreed upon. But it's big and small things. So
since you have implementing these kind of measures, you see the difference in the way people feel better at work, being more productive, less. We're going to speak with Dr. Beller about sickness, absenteeism. Have you seen some kind of a decrease in this kind of ratio, of rate?
Yeah, we measure what we call Great People Survey. It's how the people are feeling within the company. It's about management, about leadership, but also about well-being and well-being. So that score goes up every year. So that's the more, let's say, the emotional score. And of course, if you talk about results, it's results of the company. And then, well, we're outperforming average of the world because we're a worldwide company every year. So they do a high performance being in balance. Most of them are in balance. And
have you produced some kind of brochures or materials to promote this kind of activity towards your company?
Yeah, it starts with the onboarding. So every starter within the company gets a 3 days onboarding. That means we invite them 3 days at the head office. And it's not one day of them is real practical, but the second day is about values and what we do within the company. And it's also about how we can help them whenever they need it in their well-being within the company. So they get informed from the start. And then we have websites, we have brochures, which we publish every year. We have workshops, energy workshops, food workshops. So there's a lot of communication about well-being on the floor for our people.
As a former elite athlete, you know what does it mean to train hard, to lose, to win. How do you take these kind of values, what you have experienced as a former athlete, in your daily job as a chief operating officer of Randstad?
Yeah, I don't talk about literally about those things, but you
this
learn a lot.
This experience is very helpful,
sure.
and I'm sure you're using this experience every day.
I'll give you one example. What was for me a bad example, I went to the Olympics in 1984 and did a very bad performance.
But you went to the Olympics?
I went to the Olympics, but you work for 4 years for one day and then you miss it. So it's very, hard, disappointing. But what you learn is after a while to cope that. So I can talk with my young people about disillusion and having a bad time and how you try to cope them. And then as a story, I put them in front of a window and then ask if, I said, does this still turn? And then they say, what? So does the world still turn? And they say, yes. I say, okay, then it's fine. Don't worry. Just to give an example. Okay.
And I know also that, as you said, you lead by example, but also you have hired recently 2 former high elite athletes because you think they can bring also value to the company, to your company, because they are former high elite athletes. You mentioned former basketball player.
Yeah, Belgium is playing the basketball like I think France and some other countries, the World Championship basketball. They're doing rather well. The the girl who's giving the comment aside of the real journalist, is one of our managers. She's Caroline. She used to be 10 years the captain of the national basketball team, and she's taking care of what we call customer delight. So she's very into small things, getting people delighted, but also our people at work and our clients, and so that's her job. And she brings a lot because whenever you need somebody from a team sport, she's a fantastic example.
Okay, thank you, Elie, for your remarks. Very helpful. Now we're going to switch to Mr. Barbier. I'm going to switch to French. Vous travaillez à l'Organisation internationale du travail. Vous observez les mutations dans le monde du travail. Et ce que vous avez pu déjà découvrir ce matin, je pense, est très important, sachant que vous avez une approche extrêmement, je dirais, non pas théorique, mais vous êtes là pour voir dans le monde du travail comment les interactions se font, au-delà du sport, comment les interactions se font entre les dirigeants, les salariés, et peut-être que comment le sport peut aider justement à faciliter ces interactions qui sont importantes dans l'évolution du monde du travail à travers l'entreprise aujourd'hui.
Oui, merci d'abord pour l'invitation. Je ne suis pas sûr que je vais répondre directement à votre question. Je ne suis pas un théoricien des questions de sport et travail. Et au BIT, assez peu de gens travaillent sur ces sujets très directement. Moi, je suis un spécialiste du marché du travail. Évidemment, toutes les choses sont liées. Je voudrais simplement faire quelques rappels. Le BIT a une longue histoire avec
Bureau international du travail.
avec le Bureau international du travail. L'Organisation internationale du travail, c'est grosso modo l'Assemblée constituante, et le Bureau international du travail, eh bien, c'est l'office, enfin le bureau qui met en œuvre les orientations décidées par l'OIT. Le Bureau international du travail et l'OIT ont un long partenariat, enfin, avec le sport, puisque le baron Pierre de Coubertin, l'OIT a été créé en 1919, c'est la plus ancienne agence des Nations Unies. On va fêter son centenaire l'année prochaine, et je vous invite d'ailleurs à vous connecter sur nos sites pour voir les manifestations qui auront lieu à cette occasion. Et dès 1921, le baron Pierre de Coubertin donc, a rendu visite au directeur général de l'OIT de l'époque, et une convention a été adoptée, puisque le bureau, l'OIT se caractérise par le fait qu'elle est tripartite dans son organisation et dans son fonctionnement décisionnel. Et par ailleurs, elle édicte des normes qui prennent la forme de recommandations, d'orientations diverses. Et parmi ces normes, il y en a une qui a été adoptée en 1921 relative à l'utilisation des loisirs et qui faisait une grande part au sport, et dans une approche à l'époque qui était assez hygiéniste. On était au lendemain de la guerre. Il y avait des conditions de travail difficiles, il y avait aussi des problèmes d'alcoolisme chez un certain nombre de catégories de travailleurs, et donc il fallait à ce moment-là adopter un certain nombre de dispositions d'orientation par rapport à ces questions, et ça a été fait. Le mandat de l'Organisation internationale du travail, je vais venir à votre question, c'est celui de la justice sociale. Et cette justice sociale est aujourd'hui déclinée au travers de ce qu'on appelle le travail décent. Je peux vous dire 2 mots sur le travail décent, et j'ai essayé par rapport, pour la préparation de cette table ronde, de réfléchir comment ce concept, comment le sport et travail décent pouvaient se marier, se conjuguer dans le cas présent. Le travail décent a été formulé en 1999 pour la première fois par le directeur général de l'époque qui s'appelait Juan Somavia, et c'est une matrice, un concept qui vise à prendre en compte les besoins des entreprises et des travailleurs. Il repose sur 4 piliers. Le premier, c'est celui de l'accès à des emplois productifs. Le terme productif est important parce qu'il signifie que les emplois permettent aux travailleurs de contribuer à la production de richesse de son entreprise ou de l'entreprise dans laquelle il travaille, et que cette création de richesse soit suffisante pour lui permettre de vivre de son travail, de faire vivre ses proches de son travail. Le deuxième pilier, c'est la protection sociale, c'est-à-dire qu'il faut que les travailleurs bénéficient d'un minimum de protection sociale dans le cadre de l'exercice de leur métier. Le troisième, c'est le respect des droits du travail, droits fondamentaux. Et le quatrième, c'est le dialogue social, permettre aux travailleurs de pouvoir s'exprimer dans le cadre de son entreprise, de se syndiquer, etc. Et donc c'est dans ce cadre-là que j'ai réfléchi à ce que pouvait signifier le sport en entreprise. Je continue.
Continue.
Donc,
vous êtes parti là.
Sur le volet emploi productif, bon, c'est assez clair, ça a été dit ce matin. Il s'agissait de la question de la performance de l'entreprise. On voit bien qu'il y a un certain nombre de valeurs et d'expériences acquises au fil des pratiques qui permettent, je ne vais pas m'y étendre davantage puisque ça a déjà été dit, ça sera probablement dit dans le cours de la journée, qui permettent individuellement à ceux qui ont une pratique sportive dans ou hors de l'entreprise d'être plus performants. Et c'est également vrai, c'est vrai de leur performance individuelle, c'est vrai aussi de leur contribution aux performances de l'entreprise. Et il y avait une étude qui avait été faite, je ne sais pas si ça a été évoqué ce matin, mais ça le sera sans doute à un moment ou un autre, qui avait été faite par Goodwill pour le MEDEF et le Comité national olympique français, qui montrait très bien qu'il y avait des gains de productivité individuelle pour l'entreprise de, je crois que 6 à 9%, mais aussi des gains pour les individus, pardon, mais aussi des gains de productivité pour l'entreprise. Alors maintenant, une fois qu'on a dit ça, ça ne dit rien, évidemment, de la répartition de la production de richesse au sein de l'entreprise. Que les gens soient plus productifs individuellement, que les entreprises soient plus performantes du fait de la qualité de travail de leurs employés ne dit rien, évidemment, de la répartition de ces richesses entre les employeurs et puis leurs employés, ou entre les commanditaires de l'entreprise et les employés. Donc il y a aussi ces questions-là qu'il faut évidemment prendre en compte, même si ce n'est pas tout à fait focus par rapport au sujet qui est évoqué ici. Sur les éléments de protection sociale, ça a été très largement évoqué ce matin, dans ce que j'ai pu écouter, puisque je suis arrivé un peu tard. C'est évidemment la question des bénéfices apportés par la pratique du sport en termes de santé, en termes de prévention également. Et là aussi, j'ai vu qu'il y avait une étude britannique qui avait, je n'ai pas les références malheureusement de cette étude, qui indiquait que on avait, dans le cas de pratiques sportives par les personnes, une diminution de 30 à 34 euros par individu par an. Et du point de vue de la société civile, c'est-à-dire tout ce qui est entreprise hôpitaux, enfin tout ce qui concourt à la prise en charge des problèmes de santé, des diminutions de coûts de 308 à 348 euros par an. Et de la même manière, selon cette étude, il semblerait qu'on ait 30 à 40% de diminution de l'absentéisme et 25% de diminution du turnover. Donc évidemment, il y a des bénéfices importants, mais pour autant, là aussi, ça ne dit rien de la couverture sociale qui existe dans l'entreprise. On voit bien qu'il y a en termes de prévention, c'est très, très efficace. Maintenant, en cas de maladie, il faut qu'il y ait quand même des mécanismes de protection sociale qui puissent exister. Alors, sur le volet dialogue social, qui est l'axe transversal du travail de sang, je dirais qu'il n'y a pas de pratiques sportives, même individuelles, qui ne s'appuient pas sur des réseaux humains, des clubs, des associations, etc. Et qu'il y a au fond une forme de pratique du dialogue dans le cadre de l'expérience sportive. Vous pourriez d'ailleurs peut-être en témoigner. Et que tout ça est certainement très favorable à ce que des sportifs puissent s'engager dans le cadre de leur entreprise sur des activités de type syndical ou en tous les cas contribuer au dialogue social au sein de leur entreprise. De la même manière, on peut considérer que s'agissant des droits, cette préparation en quelque sorte à la discussion, au dialogue, au travail en équipe, et également leur expérience sur les réglementations, sur le droit dans leur activité sportive, dans le cadre associatif ou dans le cadre de club, peuvent également les amener à jouer un rôle important pour la promotion des droits. Cela dit, ça veut pas, le niveau des droits est là aussi quelque chose qui reste à déterminer. Puis il y a aussi, je pense, une grande sensibilité, c'est quelque chose qui compte beaucoup pour nous, évidemment, au sujet de diversité, d'égalité hommes-femmes, dans le cadre d'un certain nombre d'entreprises aussi. Ce n'est pas vrai de nos pays, heureusement, du travail des enfants. Voilà un peu schématiquement la façon dont, par rapport à notre approche, on peut voir les questions de pratiques sportives des activités physiques au sein des entreprises.
Et juste une petite question, vous avez parlé de la diversité à la fin, mais comme vous êtes sur l'Organisation internationale du travail, donc vous avez une vision sur l'ensemble des pays, est-ce qu'il y a aujourd'hui des pays qui sont, je dirais pas en avance, mais qui ont une pratique, vous avez parlé effectivement de justice sociale, travail décent, qui sont leaders par rapport aux autres et dans lequel le sport s'intégrerait beaucoup plus facilement pour faciliter effectivement tout ce qu'on a parlé de dialogue social, etc.
Oui, alors d'ailleurs, je me suis fait deux réflexions. Pour la première, on y a répondu à travers la table, enfin les discussions qui ont eu lieu précédemment dans le cadre de la présentation du baromètre. La première réflexion, c'était, mais au fond, ces questions s'adressent principalement à des grandes entreprises. Et je m'étais posé également la question de quid des petites entreprises et est-ce qu'il n'y a pas des possibilités de mutualiser. Bon, j'ai compris que tout ça était l'objet de réflexion, que c'était en cours, tant mieux. Deuxième observation que je me suis faite, c'est que c'est évidemment ce type, et ça n'enlève rien à sa nécessité ni rien à la pertinence du sujet, mais c'est quand même le fait de pays développés. Moi, j'ai beaucoup œuvré en Afrique, et en Afrique subsaharienne, en Afrique de l'Ouest, francophone de manière générale, y compris les pays du Maghreb. Et il est évident que la pratique du sport en entreprise reste très limitée. Elle reste limitée à des grandes entreprises. Et d'ailleurs, la pratique du sport, de manière générale, est difficile. Pas seulement dans l'entreprise, mais même hors de l'entreprise. On voit des choses se développer. Si vous vous promenez, moi je me souviens quand je vais maintenant à Dakar, je vois très régulièrement sur le front de mer beaucoup de jeunes qui font du sport. C'était moins vrai il y a quelques années, donc les choses bougent un peu. Mais enfin, lorsqu'il faut essayer de gagner son pain quotidien dans des conditions extrêmement difficiles, c'est vrai que c'est pas la première chose à laquelle on pense. Donc il faut aussi avoir ça en tête par rapport à ça dans le cadre d'une approche globale, quoi, dans le
Très bien, merci. I think it's time to cross the channel to have your opinion, Dr. Richard Bailey. You are the head of Research International Council of Sports Science and Physical Education. What a title. So I think first you need to introduce what you're doing and the research, and after regarding all the data that you discovered this morning, I'm sure you were pleased by the information. And now regarding your research, you can liaise and explain that your council is going to bring to the subject of the roundtable.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. There's always a slight fear that nobody turns up to sessions that are elective, so we can all breathe a sigh of relief that you're here. The International Council of Sports Science and Physical Education, not a great name, is based in Berlin, Germany, and is the world umbrella body for the science and education to do with anything sport and physical activity. So we partner with the United Nations, the International Olympic Committee and the Paralympic Committee, and represent physical activity and sports organisations internationally. The reality is that the workplace physical activity has come relatively late to ICSPE, which is how we pronounce it, but it's come relatively late to almost all organisations, to be perfectly honest. I'm actually just finishing off some analysis of what I think is the biggest survey ever of European cities and municipalities' physical activity policy with our friends at Sport and Citizenship. And physical activity in the workplace is what we, in statistics, we call an outlier. It's a long way behind everything else in terms of national and local government investment. So we asked a whole series of, I'm sure you've all filled out questionnaires from people like me, and you're endlessly answering these questions. But essentially, the reason we ask lots of questions is we're trying to triangulate and come up with a relatively objective answer. So we find, for example, that education is a very high priority in terms of physical education. We find that that transport is now a high priority for funding and policy. We find that families are a big priority, and workplaces are not, is the simple answer. There's variation between countries, but overall, across Europe, I think people haven't quite realised that there's really only two places where nearly everyone is, and that's school and work. So in terms of public health, they would, I would have thought, be fairly high up the priority. So we've been doing increasingly looking at the workplace as a site of physical activity, and also with our partners. You may have come across the Designed to Move agenda that we co-authored with Nike. That is this huge physical activity agenda, and workplace is now one of the 5 priority areas alongside schools, families, transport, and sport. With regard to that word sport, I will point out, now I live in Germany, I am increasingly aware, I used to live in Italy before that, so as time goes on, I become more aware of the power of language and how words have bias. And the word in Europe, continental Europe, you can tell I'm British, can't you, in Europe. In continental Europe, I should, by the way, point out, I have to do this compulsorily. I apologise for Brexit. Anyway, moving on.
You can stay for a couple of hours.
Thank you. Yeah, if anyone wants to know why, I don't know. In my friends in France and Germany and Italy and things tend to talk about sport as a general term for this whole business. In fact, we've heard it today. That's fine. And everyday usage, that's great. It's actually not very helpful for policy because it encompasses 2 completely different things. Physical activity, which is generally regarded as habitual, incidental, and what I mean by that is physical activity is something that you do on the way to doing something else. You know, walking to the shops, cycling to school, whatever you do. Sport, if you follow the IOC definition or even the European Union definition, typically involves competition, some type of organised activity. Why does it matter? Well, because competitive sport is a fairly useful source of physical activity, but not a very useful source. It's probably about people who are strongly sportive. They contribute about 25% of their necessary physical activity in a day. So they have to do something else. You cannot meet the WHO target playing sport all the time unless you give up your job or school and just play sport.
Or become an elite,
or become an elite long jumper. That's right.
High jumper.
High jump. I do apologise. And then. Yeah, it could be, but if you do high jump soccer, or my background is in martial arts, I don't know how many injuries you have. I mean, I can barely move at the moment because of the pain in my neck from an injury I had 30 years ago. So sport as a career, I think as a public health career is not so strong. Whereas physical activity is this kind of habitual, everyday little bits of activity. You know, I live in a city, I'm very lucky to live in, well, I'm lucky to live in the city that is the world's sexiest city. That's a fact, apparently. But also, I can cycle from my front door to my office entirely on cycle paths. And if it wasn't for the extremely dangerous driving of the Berlin drivers, I'd be completely safe because I'm on protected cycle paths. If I was in Copenhagen, it would be even easier. If I'm in London, cyclists are called organ donors by the health profession because eventually you're going to end up in hospital. So the variation in physical activity is enormously significant, and that's worth bearing in mind. With regard to workplace physical activity, there is no doubt, as you heard earlier on, but I'll say it again, organisations that promote physical activity are more efficient than those that do not promote physical activity. Individual workers who are regularly physically active perform better overall than those who do not take part in physical activity. It depends on the type of activity and the outcome that follows. So, for example, if you play team sports, then the benefits tend to be psychological and social, primarily. greater sense of team, a greater sense of community, social inclusion by bringing people together from different backgrounds. Sport is, of course, a lingua franca. You don't even need to be able to speak the language. If you do the physical activity of cycling and walking and these other types of activities, then the benefits tend to express themselves in terms of, it's an awful phrase, I do apologize, this is one of these ugly Americanisms, presenteeism. You simply have fewer days off. You're less likely to be away from work, you're less likely to be sick, you have a lower health bill for you as an individual and a lower health bill for the organisation. So that tends to be significant. And then the final thing I'll say that tends to be ignored, and I think it has been ignored so far, is in almost any setting, it surely is more important that the quality of your activity, work activity, is more important than the quantity of your activity. So in schools, for example, which is my main area of research, we tend to think that children have to do a certain amount of time for a certain amount of outcome, and it's simply not true. If we can think of a way of making them concentrate more, pay attention, be more awake, be more motivated, be happier, more joyful, they perform better. It is exactly the same in the workplace, exactly the same. Physical activity before work means that the person turns up to work more awake, more attentive, in the current lingo, more mindful, and that is associated with better performance. So I think, for me, this is another phrase from America, pushing against an open door. The evidence in favour of workplace physical activity is very, very compelling. What we don't know yet is how to persuade organisations to take it seriously. That's kind of a different question, but that's luckily not something I work in.
Then you mentioned, difference between qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative is quite easier; they got their own KPI, performance indicators.
Yeah.
How do you measure the qualitative, incentive or the qualitative physical activity, which is more difficult? Because I know, for example, Enis, you've been having your work with your staff outside to discuss different issues. So you can see it's quite different. But how do you measure this qualitative aspect of the physical activity? Because at the end, in a company, we need to measure a lot of things because we have to make budget, we have to go to our financial director, so it has to be measured to some extent.
Yes, you have to measure. On the other hand, there's also a kind of belief and being convinced that. And our team at the top of the company, we're convinced that if people are healthier, but not only healthier, in balance on all the aspects we said, they will be more present, less sick, will be higher productive. But, well, I can talk about, people don't, if I compare to the sector, for example, we have a turnover which is a third of the sector, so a lot less people leave our company than in the other companies. If we talk about sick rate, we have below average sick rate of people. We have a below average rate of burnout, although every burnout is one we don't want, but we still have them. So we can measure that, of course. But I think that if you want to change the company, it starts about belief of the people who are running. And just to give you one thing, in Belgium we have it's called a CEO meeting, and it's every last Friday of August. First year there were 30 top people of Belgium, now there are 110. It's about management, but half of the time is about being balanced at the workplace, including physical activity, but not alone. And it's growing every year, it triples. And that, I think, is the best way to get it going.
Yeah, I think that's really important, particularly the point about belief, because everything comes from belief. But the research that I've carried out, I used to be a professor in the UK, and I carried out research on implicit belief. So the difference is this: an explicit belief could be, I listen to a motivating speaker, and that person persuades me that, I don't know, I can achieve anything. An implicit belief is something that influences my behaviour, right? So one of the problems we have in Europe is that, and I'm not just saying it because he's French, we all live in a legacy of René Descartes, which we which essentially suggests that we're minds being carried around by a piece of meat. Our bodies throughout the last 300 years have been viewed as a decrepit, rotting thing that we have to keep vaguely healthy to survive. So you see this in school with the privileged position for mathematics and the sciences and things like this. You see it in work with the view that as long as you turn up, you're essentially doing your job. This is wrong, and everything we know now about how cognitive neuroscience tells us about how human beings work says that is the whole person that thinks, the whole person that feels, the whole person that reacts. And the problem that we've had with education is that we can tell teachers and education leaders about these benefits, and they nod, and they go home, turn up to school the next day, gone. Or they might believe it at a superficial level. What we've got to find is a way to make them feel it in their bones. Make them really realize. Now, one way of doing that, I think, is that data where you say, simply look at this. It is a fact. Our company is more effective now. But we have to think of other ways of engaging people, of engaging them emotionally, engaging them existentially, so that they, for example, the bosses start engaging in physical activity. The bosses feel it. And then once you start changing those implicit beliefs, everything else follows. But if we leave it at the level of catchphrases and posters and flyers that are sent out to the company, you'll get a nod and we'll introduce a little program here, but you won't get the radical change that is needed to bring about the change of lifestyle and wellness that is what I think we're all calling for.
Thank you. Yeah, just one thing after we're going to give the floor to...
Just I have the brochure here. You can read it if you want. But a brochure with us is not a brochure. It's our people giving testimonials about how they get out of a burnout or got a coach or got a... And that's real life. It's their colleagues. It's not a kind of nice flyer doing it.
And to get back to you, Dr. Belle, I think Saint Augustine used to say you have to believe before knowing. So you have to make the move. Otherwise, you will never know what's going to be the effect and the consequences of your act.
Yeah, I mean, cognitive neuroscience very, very clearly tells us that we make almost all of our decisions intuitively by feeling, and then we justify it intellectually. It's kind of a noble lie. Another Frenchman, Rousseau, but one of the good ones.
You've been in Europe for such a long time.
I really
can
have.
see that.
Yeah, I really have. It was Immanuel Kant who said, no, it's enough of that. What you feel it first of all, and then you justify it. And almost all of our decisions, I mean, something like 98% of the decisions we make are intuitive and precognitive, and that's fine. And what that means to me is that if we try to communicate through people's life stories, you're much more likely to connect with people than, for example, a standard marketing campaign, which uses kind of clever phrases. You've got to connect with people as people. Otherwise, think of it as depth. It remains a very superficial idea for people. And the moment some other challenge comes up, it's gone. Whereas if you connect with people, particularly people like you, then you're going to start connecting. You know, the myth of role models is that Olympic athletes are role models. There's no evidence that Olympic athletes influence behavior. None at all. But we keep wheeling them out and all this type of thing, paying them ludicrous amounts of performance money. People that influence behavior, your behavior, are people like you, because they show you what you can do. You could look at whoever, Paula Radcliffe or the Belgian football team, and think, oh yeah, they're going to inspire me. There's no way you could be like Hazard or somebody like that. I mean, unless you're one of the kind of 0.01% of people who has his physical gifts. But somebody like you, who's physically active, that's a genuine role model.
Thank you, Doctor. I think now we're going to give the floor, Monsieur Pullman. Vous avez la chance d'avoir la deuxième opportunité de parler. Et je pense que ce que nous venons d'entendre vous intéresse plus particulièrement par rapport au think tank, à l'étude que vous avez présentée et à vos recherches en cours. Donc, qu'est-ce que vous penser de ces éléments? Est-ce qu'on va dans le bon sens par rapport à la thématique d'être plus actif, plus productif pour l'entreprise?
Merci, je suis très heureux d'être là. Si vous permettez, moi je vais vous parler d'abord debout et ensuite en me déplaçant un peu, parce que ces affaires de bienfaits de l'activité physique pour la santé, c'est bien d'en parler, mais ce qui compte, c'est le passage à l'acte. Et donc, je vous encourage, si vous en avez envie, pendant que je parle, à vous lever, à faire quelques pas. On peut faire une grande chenille dans la salle ensemble. Dans les activités que nous organisons pour notre think tank Vitalité, Sport et Entreprise, que je co-préside avec mes complices Marie-Christine Lannes et Laurent Damiani, nous nous efforçons, entre la prise de parole de chaque intervenant, de faire de l'activité physique aux gens qui sont dans la salle. On a quelqu'un qui fait faire du yoga corporate et qui vient pour inciter les gens à bouger. Car il faut dire ce qui est. Ce qu'on est en train de faire toute la journée est très mauvais pour la santé. Donc il y a un vrai problème, je souligne ça parce qu'il y a un vrai problème de décalage entre le fait qu'aujourd'hui, la plupart des gens sont persuadés du fait que l'activité physique est bonne pour la santé, mais ça ne fait pas passer les gens à l'acte. Aujourd'hui, ça fait sourire quand on parle de la remarque de Churchill, no sport. Vous savez, donc on dit que Churchill, lorsqu'on l'interrogeait sur les raisons de sa longévité, aurait répondu no sport. On en a parlé il y a un instant. En fait, c'est pas vrai. Je parle sous le contrôle de notre ami britannique. Moi, j'ai voulu en avoir le cœur net, donc j'ai pris contact avec le grand spécialiste français de Churchill, qui s'appelle François Kersaudy, en lui demandant, qui est un universitaire comme moi, en lui demandant quand, comment, dans quelles circonstances est-ce que Churchill avait dit ça. Et il m'a dit qu'en réalité, il n'y avait absolument aucune preuve matérielle du fait que Churchill aurait dit ça. Il l'a peut-être dit, mais il n'y en a aucune preuve. Et d'ailleurs, dans les grandes bibles des citations churchilliennes qui existent en Grande-Bretagne, cette citation n'y est pas. De toute façon, Churchill était un très grand sportif, pas à la fin de sa vie, mais il était un très grand sportif quand il était jeune, champion de polo, champion d'escrime, champion de natation. Donc c'était clairement, s'il l'a dit, c'était une boutade. Nos amis britanniques, d'ailleurs, savent très bien et savent depuis longtemps que le sport est bon pour la santé. Vous avez évoqué tout à l'heure le mauvais sort qui est fait aux cyclistes à Londres, mais il y a une chose amusante, c'est qu'une des premières études scientifiques qui a été publiée sur les bienfaits de l'activité physique et sportive dans le cadre du travail, c'est une étude qui a été publiée dans les années 50 dans la revue The Lancet, qui comparait la situation pour les employés des transports londoniens. Et cette étude montrait notamment que les contrôleurs des autobus avaient 2 fois moins de chances de faire un accident cardiovasculaire que les conducteurs. Vous devinez pourquoi? Les contrôleurs, ils passaient leur temps à monter et à descendre l'escalier dans les double-deck bus. Bon. Aujourd'hui, il y a de très nombreuses études qui montrent les bienfaits de l'activité physique pour la santé. Vous avez évoqué le golf en début de session. C'est une des études les plus frappantes. On a comparé la situation des 300 000 licenciés de golf suédois à une population témoin ayant exactement la même structure d'âge et le même niveau socio-économique. Et on a montré qu'il y avait 5 ans de longévité en plus. 5 ans, c'est pas rien, hein. 5 ans d'espérance de vie supplémentaire pour les joueurs de golf. Les études se sont multipliées. Pour l'entreprise, vous avez cité l'étude Goodwill. Il y en a d'autres. C'est convergent avec des études, notamment qui ont été publiées au Canada. Je ne suis pas certain que les chiffres de l'étude Goodwill soient totalement rigoureux. Les auteurs de l'étude en conviennent eux-mêmes. Mais peu importe, ça montre la direction dans laquelle on va. La question aujourd'hui n'est plus d'établir que l'activité physique est bonne pour la santé. La question, c'est de savoir sur quel levier est-ce qu'on peut jouer pour que tous les gens qui ne font pas d'activité physique se mettent à l'activité physique. Sinon, on crée des effets d'aubaine. Dans les entreprises où on propose de l'activité physique, c'est les gens qui en feraient de toute façon qui viennent en faire. Donc les vraies problématiques aujourd'hui sont des problématiques qui tournent autour de la question de la motivation. Et là, il faut vraiment écouter ce que les gens vous disent. Quand les gens vous disent, par exemple, que la principale raison pour laquelle ils ne font pas d'activité physique, c'est qu'ils n'ont pas le temps. Il ne faut pas traiter ça à la légère. C'est partiellement faux, mais il ne faut pas le traiter à la légère. Ça veut dire qu'il faut proposer aux gens des modules qui, sur une courte période, sont physiquement utiles. Et ça peut se concevoir, mais ça implique qu'il faut y avoir travaillé, avoir réfléchi. Donc c'est dire si tout ce que j'ai entendu précédemment m'a beaucoup intéressé.
Très bien. De toute façon, je pense que ce qu'a dit le docteur Bellet avec le belief et vous, la motivation, c'est les deux moteurs qui peuvent changer les choses. Aujourd'hui, au-delà des chiffres, il faut qu'il y ait une vraie volonté de la part des dirigeants et une croyance que ce que l'on fait va dans le bon sens. Je vais peut-être, Dr. Müller, you want to add something to what you heard? Based on your experience?
Yes, first, I think our professor is a real professor, and he is right. We give a very bad example for our issue because we are sitting, and I think sitting is a new smoking. And so, congratulations to Professor Pullman.
He's a golf player, no? Questions on the floor, if you want to the panelists? Vous avez les micros pour... Tenez, je vous donne le mien, le temps que... Tenez.
Merci beaucoup. I will ask the question in English so that everybody can understand and maybe you can translate. I just have a quick question regarding the difference between the workplace and the private life. It was mentioned a little bit this morning, and my question would be really, how can you break down this barrier that, and I think this is also a question for our colleague from Randstad, break down this barrier that work is associated with a paid activity and you do not want it to be involved in your personal life, such as health and so on. How can you influence this? What are the tools to inspire this change?
Juste un mot pour dire qu'il y a des enseignements plutôt positifs du baromètre qu'on a présenté tout à l'heure à cet égard, puisqu'on voit dans ce baromètre, j'ai plus les chiffres complètement en tête, mais que le pourcentage de dirigeants d'entreprise, qui considèrent qu'ils sont légitimes pour proposer de l'activité physique et sportive à leurs salariés est très élevé. Et le pourcentage de salariés qui considèrent aussi que est très élevé. Il y a des gens qui sont réticents à ça, mais c'est une barrière qui progressivement est en train de s'étioler. Et je pense que de ce point de vue-là, la dynamique portée par les jeunes générations est très positive. Les jeunes aujourd'hui, les millennials, comme on dit, etc., ils n'ont pas envie qu'on leur mette des barrières comme ça entre vie privée et vie du travail, et ils veulent pouvoir faire de l'activité physique dans le cadre de leur travail.
Oui, juste un témoignage personnel par rapport à ça, parce que j'étais en poste avant à Genève, je suis maintenant à Paris. À Genève, on avait la chance d'avoir une grande salle de sport. Et donc, j'y allais régulièrement, d'autres collègues également. Et j'avais des collègues qui avaient également une grande pratique sportive et qui n'allaient jamais à cette salle, qui n'utilisaient jamais les installations sportives du BIT. Donc, si vous voulez, en termes d'impact positif de la pratique sportive dans le travail pour eux, ça existait. Mais en revanche, ils ne voulaient absolument pas retrouver les collègues dans le cadre d'une pratique sportive. Moi, c'est plutôt quelque chose qui me faisait plaisir parce qu'on voyait les collègues dans un univers différent et je trouve que c'était très enrichissant. Mais enfin, ça existe aussi, donc il faut en avoir conscience. Et surtout, ça atténue peut-être la portée des chiffres que vous avez mentionnés sur le fait que les gens ne veulent pas faire du sport sur le lieu du travail. Ça ne veut pas dire qu'ils n'en fassent pas.
I have one. Yeah, first of all, we have to take care that in private life, also their balance remain. This means people can work at home, but it has to be okay, and not all the time. So I think indeed there's the difference between stop work and go home, and it's disappearing a little bit. But we have to take care that it's not one and the same. Second, what people do activities in their private life, it's their right to do that, and I hope they do it a lot. But we take care that they can do it at work. So we have a table tennis table, and we have workstations where you can walk instead of sitting, and we have stairs, and we have a lot of things we offer to be active. It's always their choice. We never oblige people to do that, but because people start doing that, more and more of them do it. Except for one thing, which is amazing. We have sleeping pods. So it's maybe strange, but you can take a nap for 20 minutes if you want, just to get mentally fit. Nobody uses it. Apparently, socially, that's something you cannot get into your company. But the activity, that's okay.
Other questions? Dr. Bellet, to what extent a company or the world of the workplace can reflect on the success in the Anglo-Saxon world or countries, going to a college, to universities in America, in England, for example, if you follow the boat race between Oxford and Cambridge, it's part of your lifetime, and it creates some kind of sense of loyalty, but also practicing sport, not physical activity, you keep that for the rest of your life. And this is really true in England, in Great Britain, in America, when you're part of Yale or whatever the university you've been, you keep your T-shirt, your hoodie, and you're proud of it. How can we transfer this kind of sense of loyalty within the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, particularly the United States, the alumni idea is really significant to the extent that the leading British universities are now appointing American presidents because the tradition and the assumptions. You gave the example of the Oxford-Cambridge boat race, which is really significant. I studied at Oxford for a while, and University of Vienna, and it's kind of part of my identity. It's quite significant. But one of the things that people don't realise about that is, if you represent Oxford or Cambridge in rowing, you're called a blue. So, as I recall, Oxford's dark blue and Cambridge's light blue. But that's any of the major sports, and a number of studies have shown that Oxford and Cambridge blues earn more than those who are not blues. In other words, the best athletes and sports players earn more. It's one of the little secrets that we're always proud that we don't do what America does and pay for athletes to go to universities. Yeah, we do. It's called the boat race. It's not a coincidence that everyone in the victorious...
It's supposed to be amateur sport.
It's supposed to be amateur sport. Everyone in the winning Oxford boat about 8 years ago was American. Well, how does that work? It was the American Olympic team. That's how it worked. So it is significant. I mean, we've carried out some studies, and we followed on studies from Germany, actually Munich, where they tracked the career trajectory of people who played sport and did physical activity. And then we followed that I followed that by carrying out fake letter applications for jobs. That wasn't criminal, by the way. I mean, the people knew what they were participating in, but they didn't know what the letters were going to be. The studies from Germany show fairly conclusively that people who are members of sports clubs earn more when they go into employment. We calculate it as 1 year salary more at the point of entry. So what I mean by that is, if you're a 21-year-old young person going into employment, your starting salary is that of a 22-year-old. Which is, therefore, a few €1,000. What we tried to understand why that was, and it seems to be a number of things. One is what I said before about presenteeism, horrible phrase, and health and the lower health costs, the lower health insurance costs. Another factor is that employers believe that people who participate in sport are better team players, they work harder, they've got grit, resilience, things like this. And I think the evidence shows that's true as well. We tested this by sending employers applications where the only difference was membership of a sports club. And it's true. People who are employers like applicants who play sport. The reality is that if you just play competitive sport in kind of the Anglo-Saxon sense, you probably do have a greater understanding of what it is to be in a team and to delay your personal interests for the sake of the group. You probably don't have a lower risk of health concerns. That's things like cycling and walking and running and swimming and just generally living an active lifestyle. If you do both, you're a very attractive proposition for an employer. So yeah, so the career thing is really interesting. Second point about Germany that I wanted to make earlier on because we kind of skipped over it. Germany has the highest membership of sports clubs in the world. Okay, number one. Now, coming from the UK, where sports clubs are seriously bound by social class in most sports, that's our favourite hobby, dividing people into various different ways. Tennis clubs are predominantly a certain group, a B2 or B1. Golf clubs would be B1, A2, and soccer clubs or boxing clubs would be kind of E1 or something like this. Germany, 85 to 90% of children are members of sports clubs. And in terms of tracking, membership of sports clubs is probably the single biggest predictor of later adult physical activity, membership of sports club. And that's something to do with the identity of, this is my life. Physical activity in sport is what I'm about. So in my opinion, that says to me, if you're about workplace physical activity or public health in the broader sense, don't forget where these people come from. And that says to me, families, getting children physically active, getting wives and husbands physically active, getting grandparents physically active. And then they're much more likely to enter the workplace hungry for these opportunities.
Perhaps I can add some aspects, because he was friendly speaking about Germany. First, we spoke about the connection between health and sport. That's right. But there was another aspect, the connection between sport and value. And I think it's another very, very aspect in this discussion, the values of sport. And the values of sport are not only for the private person, they are naturally in their work time or in the school. And so second, we have studies that pupils who are doing sport are very better in school, better learning. And third one, in a society which is in a diffusion, you have in Germany one home. I say it so, a home that is your club. The identity, the possibility of identity, and that's another aspects of our issue.
I think, thank you very much. That's the best way to conclude our roundtable. I'd like to, please, if you can give a warm thank to all the panelists.